Okay, welcome back to you guys. I'm going to share this next topic with you. What is enlightenment, so that you'll understand more about this mental state that the Buddha is guiding you to be able to understand and how to actually accomplish this. Because while he did it by himself, you're going to need teachers and guides to be able to help you to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. But a teacher is essentially like a tour guide. We're pointing out for you the things that you need to understand, where it's you that's choosing to do the work, to investigate the teachings, to examine them, to reflect on them, to independently verify them, and then to practice them, integrating them into your day-to-day life. But understanding about this mental state is going to help you to more easily navigate your way to it. It's kind of like if I came to you and said, hey, would you like to go to Chiang Rai? And you're like, well, what is Chiang Rai? And I'm like, oh, it's the city to the north of Chiang Mai. It's 3 hours north. We're going to drive through the mountains and, we're going to see these things and those things and these things. And you would be able to more easily navigate your way to Chiang Rai. And you would actually know that you actually got there once you arrive if you know a little bit about this city. So it's the same kind of thing with this mental state. If you know about what this mental state is, you'll be able to more easily navigate your way to it. And you'll know that you've actually gotten there once you've gotten there. So I'm going to share with you what this mental state is, but just understand that it's a challenge for the unenlightened mind to understand what enlightenment is. Because while I can sit here and explain it to you all day, it's kind of like if you have never had chocolate ice cream before, and I sat here and explained to you what chocolate ice cream is, you wouldn't really know what chocolate ice cream tastes like until you actually tasted it yourself. You would need to actually experience it. So it's the same thing with enlightenment, that I can explain it to you, and you'll definitely know more about enlightenment after our discussion than you do right now. But just understand you're not going to know everything there is to know about enlightenment after our discussion, that there's more for you to actually learn and understand, but you'll at least get started with that today to be able to understand what enlightenment is. So what enlightenment is it's a mental state that is attainable during life as a human, in the human realm or in the heavenly realm. This is where the mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's a mental state that you've trained your mind to attain as part of growing and developing on the path to enlightenment. The mind can eliminate 100% of all of its discontentedness, all the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All those feelings and others are eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. It's a purification of the mind where you're uprooting the causes and conditions that are producing it. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll notice that there's focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. You'll notice that the mind is steady, it's unshakable. It doesn't matter what's happening in your day-to-day life, you will be able to maintain your stability and steadiness of mind. Right now, you might find it very challenging to imagine that there's something like that that's in the world, that you're able to actually experience that, but that is what enlightenment is. Right now, probably if your mother died, for example, you'd probably be really shaken up by that. You would probably be very sorrowful or grieving perhaps, right? But you can get to a point where you understand that it's not your love that's causing that, and you can uproot the causes and conditions that are producing that in the mind, where you can get to a point where you can maintain your love and your appreciation for the people around you, but you're not shaken up, for example, when somebody dies, right? This is just the natural part of the world. So an enlightened being is no longer experiencing any kind of shaking up of the mind. Their mind is steady and stable. It's unshakable. It's peaceful and joyful. You'll notice that the mind is relaxed and calm, but yet attentive and alert. Because oftentimes when we talk about a relaxed and calm mind, we think like, the person just kind of like laid back and just kind of like so dull and so lethargic. But that's not the actual case. With an enlightened mind, the mind is relaxed and calm, but it's attentive, it's alert. So this is what an enlightened being will experience. And you can attain this mental state during your life, but you can also attain it at death as well. So some people might attain this mental state at the time of death. Ultimately, you would like to attain it prior to death, because if you attain enlightenment at any point during your life, your mind will be in that mental state for the rest of your life. Your mind will never experience being unenlightened again. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger or frustration or agitation or annoyance or any of these other discontent feelings. So say you got to enlightenment at the age of 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever age it is, you'll experience the whole rest of your life in this enlightened mental state. The mind, the way it's gotten to this enlightened mental state is through freeing the mind and eliminating what's called craving, anger, and ignorance. We're going to be talking about this on Wednesday morning. These are the 3 pollutions of the mind, where you're going to be able to understand what those are and the symptoms of them, and then the solutions of how to fix those and uproot them from the mind. The mind will have completely purified itself of craving, anger, and ignorance. You will have accomplished what's called realizing non-self and dissolving the ego. This is part of the path to enlightenment. The individual will be practicing generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. The path to enlightenment is a purification of the mind. Where enlightenment itself is the mental state, the path to enlightenment is learning how to purify your mind of these pollutions of craving, anger, and ignorance, and getting rid of the conditions that are keeping it in the unenlightened state. Sometimes people describe enlightenment as happiness or ultimate bliss. I tend to not describe it that way, even though there's plenty of happiness in the enlightened mental state. It's different than the happiness that you experience now. The happiness that you experience now is based on some condition. That maybe if your bank account balance is here, you're happy. Or if it's sunny outside, you might be happy. Or if you get a raise at work and your boss says, hey, we're going to promote you, and you might get happy because of that. That happiness is conditional happiness. It's based on some condition that then you will be happy. But that happiness, it arises, it changes, and then it fades away. The happiness that you're experiencing in the unenlightened state, it's not conditional happiness. It's unconditional happiness, where the mind is just always happy. Irregardless of what's going on around you, you can maintain your happiness at all times. So the happiness that you experience in the enlightened mental state is unconditional. There doesn't need to be any condition that's actually met in order for you to experience that happiness. You wake up happy. All day long, you're happy. You go to sleep, you're still happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for you to experience that happiness. When you get to something that's called the jhanas, you're going to hear in a moment that there's 4 stages of enlightenment that the mind goes through. But before you get to the first stage of enlightenment, there's something called the jhanas. These are preliminary phases that the mind experiences on its way to the first stage of enlightenment. In these preliminary phases called the jhanas, this is where you experience enhanced qualities of mind. There's certain enhanced qualities that you're going to experience as you're making your way to those mental states of the jhanas, these preliminary phases before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. In those jhanas, you can experience what's called ultimate bliss, where people talk about this blissful nature of the mind. And oftentimes when people are experiencing those jhanas, they don't realize that that's what it is. Sometimes people think that that's enlightenment, because what you experience when you're off the path to enlightenment to what you experience when your mind's in the jhanas, it's like night and day. What your mind is experiencing, the quality of mind that you're experiencing. So some people that are in the jhanas that don't realize that that's what they're experiencing, they think that they're enlightened. So they will describe what they're experiencing as enlightenment. So this is why some people describe enlightenment as ultimate bliss, because they're actually experiencing the jhanas. Their mind's not enlightened yet, but they think they're enlightened. So they're describing enlightenment as ultimate bliss. And this is where you'll also hear some people say that enlightened beings will still experience anger or frustration or disappointment or agitation or annoyance. But I can assure you an enlightened being doesn't experience any of those kinds of things. But people who think that they're enlightened and they're still experiencing sadness, anger, or frustration, they will describe enlightened beings as still experiencing those aspects of the mind. But an enlightened being doesn't experience those kinds of things. You're not doing all this work on the path to enlightenment to continue to experience frustration and agitation and annoyance. You'll get to the point where you don't experience that. And you'll see that your mind's doing that, because each day as you're training your mind over the course of weeks and months, you'll be able to see situations where you were once angry or frustrated. You'll be in those same situations and your mind's not angry or frustrated anymore. And you'll know that it's actually these teachings that are guiding you to that improved mental state. So this is a bit about what enlightenment is. In terms of what the advantages of getting to enlightenment are, is that the mind's completely peaceful. calm, serene, and content with joy. It's a permanent mental state. As I mentioned, it's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience any of these discontent feelings. The mind has accomplished this through purification of the mind, uprooting pollutions in the mind. And because of that, the mind is performing optimally, where there's a high degree of focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. You'll notice this about your mind, that it's more focused and concentrated because you've been training it and honing it. None of these feelings will actually be experienced by an enlightened being. Oftentimes people think that these feelings are being caused by other people. Sometimes people will blame others for the feelings that they're experiencing. So what you'll learn tomorrow when we talk about the Four Noble Truths is that your own mind is actually causing these feelings. That's why you can actually eliminate them. If it was other people that was causing these feelings for you, you would never be able to eliminate these feelings. So the Buddha didn't go around teaching other people to do things a certain way in order for him to get to peacefulness. He trained his own mind. And by training his own mind, that's what allowed him to get to the peacefulness and the joy. So you don't have to go around and teach other people to do things your way. That's not the way that you're going to get to peacefulness. You need to train your mind. And when you train your mind, you'll be able to eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing these. And I'll describe this for you tomorrow in a way that you can independently verify so that you can see the truth for yourself that your own mind is causing these feelings. And I'm going to teach you how to eliminate them as well. What you'll notice when you get to enlightenment is that your mind has deep wisdom. All the way through the path to enlightenment, you're cultivating wisdom about the world around you. This deep wisdom that you're cultivating, you'll be able to use it in your day-to-day life to make wise decisions. You'll notice that you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to all beings, everybody around you. You might notice that in some situations, it's challenging for you to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. But this is, again, coming from your own mind. If you're being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships, that's not coming from other people. That's coming from within your own mind. And you can transform that so that you're no longer being bitter and harsh and hostile to others. And because of this, you'll notice that people aren't being that way with you either. You'll notice that you're not causing any harm towards other beings in the world. And because you're not causing harm to others, harm isn't coming back to you either. You'll notice that your personal professional relationships are really blossoming, that they'll be at ease because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile to people any longer. And when you go for an extended period of time where you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile with people, more and more people aren't going to be that way with you either. But you're going to need to work on your own mind, and then in your relationships, you're going to need to function better. Because as long as you're bitter and harsh and hostile to people, this is what's going to be coming back to you. So as you purify your mind and you improve the way that you function in the world, you'll see that people will improve the way that they function around you as well. But you won't have to go out and overtly teach people, but people will learn through your actions and the way that you function. So these are some of the advantages of getting to enlightenment. In terms of how to get to enlightenment, there's certain core central teachings that you're going to need to learn and understand in order to be able to get to enlightenment. You're going to need to know the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, and the 5 precepts. I'm going to be teaching you all of those as part of this course because these are part of the foundational teachings. It's a core central group of teachings. Then you're going to need to know the Brahma Viharas. I'm going to introduce you to that in this course, just in terms of I'm going to mention it at one point. I'm not even going to mention that they are the Brahma Viharas, but I'm going to kind of introduce you to them in kind of like a light way as part of this course. But there's other places where I teach you the Brahma Viharas, particularly in this book, but in also other courses and retreats and things like that. I'm going to introduce you to the 10 fetters here in a moment. Then there's the 7 factors of enlightenment that you can learn. Then there's extensive meditation training. These are like the core central teachings that you need in order to be able to get to enlightenment. There's other teachings beyond this that you need in order to get to enlightenment, but this is what you're usually focused on when you're first getting started, is this core central group of teachings. And the way that the teachings of the Buddha work is you're not believing any of his teachings. You're learning his teachings. You're examining them and investigating them. You're then reflecting on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. You're then practicing those teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to transform your mind. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't about believe, and then hope something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning, examining his teachings intellectually. Then you are reflecting on those to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to transform your mind. And this is how you would approach the teachings of the Buddha, is you really investigate and examine them. That's where you're awakening your mind. You're cultivating wisdom about the world around you. You're not believing any of his teachings. So you're never interested in believing what I say. You're never interested in believing what's in these books. You would like to be able to see the truth for yourself through investigation of the teachings. Okay, so this is how you attain enlightenment in the teachings that you actually need. Do you guys have any questions on this before we go further? Let me see if we have any questions online. For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, so Tiffany's asking, will you be sporadically live throughout today? Actually, I'm going to be live at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Thai time today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, because I'm teaching this course. So you're going to see that I'm going to go live and then end it, and then I'm going to go live again, because each individual little class is part of our course. I'll go live each individual class. So if you're on our YouTube channel, which I see you are, you'll be able to see that I'm going to be going live throughout the day for the next 4 days. And then, is it recorded session? No, this is a live session. We're actually right now in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I'm teaching, and it is being recorded, so you can watch it afterwards. So you're welcome to attend live if you like and ask questions the way you are. And then Tiffany's asking, this is live right now in Chiang Mai. Yeah, that's true. I think Tiffany was answering the question for the other person. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions coming in.
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, who's that? Oh, okay, there you are. Okay, I was like, where's it at on the computer? How did they start talking?
Sound from nowhere. So there was a slide before. It's about what is enlightenment, because it says the being will have escaped the cycle of rebirth. So I was wondering, is it the same as what I thought? So rebirth means Buddhism acknowledges the existence of rebirth. So I was just...
Yeah, so the Buddha teaches the cycle of rebirth because this is true reality. This is what actually is occurring. Right now, there's many people in the world that believe they only have one life, but they haven't actually have any evidence that they only have one life. The only evidence that they're thinking about is that right now they can't remember perhaps their previous lives. But as you're training your mind and you're getting rid of these pollutions of the mind, you might start to observe and have memories of your past lives. And if you didn't understand that that's what it was, it could really shake you up. So like if you started having vivid memories of being murdered, if you didn't understand that was your past life, it could really shake you up in this life. So the Buddha teaches the cycle of rebirth, and you can independently verify that it's true. In volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria that help you to be able to independently verify the cycle of rebirth, so you can see the truth about this particular aspect of the world. But it's in volume 11, chapter 105 for a reason, because it's not something you need to learn right up front. So while I'm mentioning this as part of what is enlightenment, that you'll no longer be reborn in the cycle of rebirth, it's not something that I really talk about up front unless students ask about it, because what's happened in the past is in the past. It doesn't matter anymore. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It hasn't happened yet. What's important is right now, if your mind's experiencing discontentedness, which I'm imagine it is in certain situations, then you would like to solve that. And that's where the teachings of the Buddha come in. So it's better to focus on what you can do in this life to train your mind rather than worrying about what may or may not happen in the future or what's happened in the past. But just understand that at some point in your journey to enlightenment, you will be interested, I'm sure, to explore the cycle of rebirth. And there's teachings available to help you do that.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wonderful.
Okay. So I don't see any other questions anywhere. All right. So I'm going to move on to helping you guys understand the 10 fetters. Because in terms of the pollutions of mind and what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're purifying your mind of these 10 fetters. These are the 10 pollutions or defilements of the mind. They're also referred to as taints. The reason why they're referred to as fetters is because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a prisoner and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball that would essentially be attached to your ankle, and then they would keep you in this field with other prisoners. And this is what was keeping you confined to that particular area, is this shackle, this chain, and this ball. This was called a fetter. So when the Buddha discovers these pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped or confined in this continuous discontentedness where it's being trapped in the unenlightened state. It keeps experiencing anger and frustration and sadness over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So when you eliminate the 10 fetters, the mind is actually enlightened because you've eliminated these balls and chain. This is why the Buddha refers to enlightenment as liberation, because the mind is free. It's no longer bound up and confined to experiencing anger and frustration and sadness over and over and over again. So ultimately, you're going to need to know all of these fetters in detail. And I teach you that at a retreat that I teach each August. I teach you what is the fetter. I teach you the symptoms of it so that you can see that your mind has it. I explain to you how to eliminate it from the mind. And then I also explain to you how to know that you've actually eliminated it. But you wouldn't be able to implement those teachings yet until you understand the foundation. You need to get a foundation really well underway. So what I'm going to do here today is I'm going to introduce you to the 10 fetters so that you understand that this is the underlying thing that the Buddha is teaching you how to eliminate out of your mind. And everything that I teach you, either in this course or any other course, is helping you to target these fetters and get them out of the mind. But you don't really start looking at them in detail until later because you really need to get the foundational teachings underway first. All those foundational teachings, in one way or another, are helping you to eliminate these 10 fetters. So let me just introduce you to them so you can understand a little bit about what they are. And remember, don't believe what I'm sharing with you. When I talk about these, you're going to see that your mind actually has these individual fetters because I'm going to talk a little bit about the symptoms of them so you can see that your mind has them. So, for example, this first one, we're actually going to be talking about this tomorrow as well. It's called personal existence view. This is where the mind has the misunderstanding or the confusion that this body or that this mind is you, where you'll cling to a certain self-image or a self-identity. And when you're clinging to this, if you have agreeable things that are happening, then you'll get pleasant feelings. But if you have disagreeable things, you'll get painful feelings. So let me give you an example. The mind with its personal existence view, it wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. So the mind will cling to this bodily image, this self-image. And now let's just say you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. Like someone says, wow, you're so beautiful, or you're so handsome. That shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. You'll get like so proud. You'll be like, wow, they're talking about me. But then it's only a matter of time before somebody says something negative and degrading or disparaging about the appearance of this body. And now you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Or maybe you're in a social situation where you spill something on your clothing and now you're embarrassed. The reason why is because of this personal existence view, where you're clinging to this self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And it's only when you're being perceived by others in the way that you want to be perceived that your mind has those pleasant feelings. But when you're not being perceived by others in a certain way, you'll experience the agitation or frustration or embarrassment or other feelings like this. So this is going on with the the self-image. If you've ever seen a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple in the mirror and you were shaken up by that, or a gray hair, that's your personal existence view, right? If you ever experienced, standing in front of your closet and you were thinking about, who am I going to see today and how do I want to look? And you put on some clothes and you're like, no, I don't want to look like that. And then you put on some other clothes and you're like, no, I don't want to look like that. And then you put on a third pair, like, okay, now I can go outside, right? This is what personal existence view does, that you don't feel comfortable going outside until everything about this self-image is exactly the way you want it to appear. When I was a teenager, I used to use gel and mousse, and I used to run it through my hair, and I tried to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I would go out to school, because I couldn't go outside to school until every little hair was in exactly the right spot. And sometimes I did this for so long, I would miss the school bus on my way to school, right? So you might have experienced some of these kinds of things. This is the personal existence view related to the self-image. But then there's a self-identity that the mind is holding on to. This is like, I am, right? So your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, your mind can cling to this, thinking that this is who you are as a person. Like, I am American, or I am Chinese, or I am Spanish, right? Any of this I am. I am a boyfriend. I am a girlfriend. I am a police officer. I am a Buddhist teacher. I am this. I am that. As long as the mind is clinging to any kind of identity, you're not going to be able to experience permanent peace and permanent joy. Because if you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, they say, all Chinese people are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. Spanish people are so friendly. I really enjoy being with these people. Oh, they're so great. Well, if you hear that, and you identify with I am Chinese or I am Spanish, wow, you're like so proud, like they're talking about me. But now 2 tables over, somebody says something negative and degrading and disparaging about where you come from. And if your mind is holding on to that as your identity, now you're going to be angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. Right? So the Buddha is teaching you how to get rid of this personal existence view, where your mind is no longer clinging to a self-image or a self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. 1 second, I'm just going to adjust this air conditioning. I see you. You look like you're cold, yeah? You're fine? Okay. All right. I'll still adjust it because I feel a little bit chilly. All right. So the Buddha is teaching you this personal existence view, how to get rid of it. Because as long as you allow this in the mind, like for example, if you identify as I am a police officer, and now you get injured or you're not working, you're retired, you feel like less of a person. You don't feel whole any longer, right? So you can get rid of this, understanding that this body nor this mind determines who you are as a person, okay? Then there's something called doubt. What doubt is where you have doubt about the teachings, where you have doubt about the Buddha, the teachings, the community, your teacher, or your own ability to get to enlightenment. And when people come to the path to enlightenment, they have doubt. You probably have doubt whether this person even existed. You probably have doubt about his teachings. You have probably doubt about the people that come here, maybe. You might have doubt about me, whether I can actually guide you to enlightenment. And you might have doubt about your ability to actually get to enlightenment. That's normal. But when you are interested in getting rid of your doubt, you don't get rid of this through blind belief or faith. The way you get rid of doubt is through investigation of the teachings. When you investigate and examine the teachings and you actually apply them in your day-to-day life and you see the condition of your mind gradually improving, you'll get to the point where you don't have doubt any longer. That you won't doubt the Buddha, you won't doubt his teachings, you won't doubt the community, and you won't doubt your teacher because that person has helped you to get to an improved mental state, and you won't doubt your ability to get to enlightenment because you see that your mind's doing it, right? So you can actually harness this doubt. If you have doubt right now, which is very common, you can harness it. You can say to yourself, yeah, you have doubt. Let me figure out whether these teachings actually lead to enlightenment or not. So you can kind of roll up your sleeves, sink your teeth in, and work to figure out whether or not these teachings actually lead to your enlightenment. If you examine these teachings close enough, you're going to see that they lead to enlightenment. And that's when your mind will experience less and less doubt, because you see the improvement to your mind and you see the improvement to your life, that your relationships are getting better and better. So you don't eliminate doubt through just blind belief or faith or anything like that. You do it through investigation of the teachings. Then there's something called wrong behavior and observances. What this is there's a certain amount of moral conduct that you're doing now that is unwise, right? You might be doing things, maybe you're gossiping or slandering or lying. Maybe there's certain harmful activities that you're doing with your speech or your body, or maybe your job or occupation, your livelihood. The Buddha teaches you some moral conduct so that you're no longer causing harm through your moral conduct. Because as long as you're causing harm through your moral conduct, this harm is going to keep coming back to you. It's kind of like a pipe. If there's an oil pipe, if it's spewing all over the world, if it's broke and it's spewing oil all over the world, one of the first things you'd like to do is shut down the pipe so it's no longer spewing oil all over the world. So your moral conduct, there are certain things that you might be doing that is causing harm to others through your speech or your actions and things like this. I'm going to teach you this tomorrow, where you can improve your moral conduct, where you're not causing harm to others through your moral conduct. And when you improve your moral conduct to the level that you'll see in the Eightfold Path, you will have eliminated the wrong behavior part of this fetter, because now you're functioning in a way where you're not causing harm to others. Then the part where it's called wrong observances, what this is there's certain rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship that people might be doing, thinking that this is improving their life, and this is a mind that is not understanding what the underlying problem is. The underlying problem is that the mind is lacking wisdom. There's a certain unknowing of true reality. And what you need to do to improve your life and improve your mind is cultivation of wisdom. And there's no rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship that's going to help you to cultivate wisdom. So the Buddha didn't teach any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship. So if you see those things being attributed to the teachings of the Buddha didn't actually teach those things. So he's teaching you as part of the 10 fetters to eliminate the thinking or the thought or the idea that rites or rituals, ceremonies, and worship will actually lead to an improved condition of mind or an improved condition of life. And oftentimes people have already eliminated that before they ever start studying with me, because they know that I don't teach rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. I don't do those things. And oftentimes they've done those things other places, and they know that they don't lead to any kind of improvement in their life. So they end up coming to study with me. So you guys may have already been exposed to that, and you know that, yeah, those things don't lead to an improved way of life. And that might be why you're interested in learning what the Buddha is actually teaching you. So whether somebody chooses to do these things or not, that's a personal choice for everybody. The Buddha's teachings aren't here to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing in your life. You're an adult. You can make decisions for yourself. Instead, his teachings are showing you what's hindering you or blocking you from experiencing this enlightened mental state. And if someone thought that rites, rituals, and ceremonies and worship is leading to an improved mental state, then that means they don't understand that they need to cultivate wisdom. And that's what's going to actually lead to your improved way of life in your improved mental state, is the cultivation of wisdom. So whether someone chooses to do these things, maybe with their family, there's a family event or something like that, and maybe they're going out to the church or the synagogue or the temple or the mosque, that's up to them to decide. But as long as your mind understands that these things aren't leading to an improved way of life, an improved mental state, that's what this fetter is all about. Then there's something called sensual desire. This is where your mind is longing, yearning through your senses, your eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. The mind is longing, yearning for things to be permanently agreeable. And it's longing through these senses. So if you experience agreeable things that you see or hear or smell or taste with your tongue, or come in contact with the body or thoughts that go through the mind, then you'll get pleasant feelings. But if you have disagreeable contact through these sense bases, then you'll get painful feelings. This is coming from the sensual desire. So for example, if you hear music that you like, you might be really excited and kind of dancing and having a good time. But if you hear music that you don't like, you might get angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. That's the sensual desire. It's not the music that's causing that. It's not the person who's playing the music. It's the mind's sensual desire, wanting things to be permanently agreeable. And when the mind's central desire is not getting met, that's when the ill will arise. That there'll be bitterness and harshness and hostility. There'll be anger and frustration. And this individual will typically vent that towards other people. This is the hatred and the anger, the animosity, the bitterness, the resentment towards others. Because an individual's central desire is not getting met, so then their ill will arise in their mind. And now they might be unskillful through their intentions, their speech, and their actions. And I'm sure you have experienced that, where you were maybe being bitter and harsh and hostile to other people. This is because of the central desire. The ill will then arises. So the Buddha is teaching you, as part of his teachings, how to purify the mind of all of these, as well as these as well. These are the higher fetters. Desire for form and desire for formless, this is where the mind has a desire to exist in the world. The form is to be existing in the animal realm or the human realm. Those are the realms that have physical form. So if you have a desire, if you want to be in this world, then that's a certain pollution, that your mind is holding on to this world, wanting to be in this world. Or the desire for formless is where you have a desire to be in the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm, or the heavenly realm. That's a very common one, that people have this desire to be in heaven. They think that heaven is a permanent place, where it's not actually permanent, it is impermanent. And there are people that have a desire to be in hell as well. They're very few, but there are some people that have that desire. So it's an understanding of learning how to be in this world and be peaceful and joyful and harmonious in this world without actually clinging to it and wanting it to be permanent. So you can eliminate this desire where you're holding on to the world and not wanting to let go. Because if you have a desire to be in this world, when you get to death, it'll be very painful for you, because you need to let go of this world. You need to move on out of this world. And now the mind's holding on to all of these things so tightly that it doesn't want to let go. So you can eliminate this, where you no longer even have a fear of death. By the time you get to the point where you've eliminated these two fetters, you don't even have fear of death anymore. Right now, you might have a fear of death potentially, but you can get to the point where you don't have that fear in your mind any longer. You understand that that's just part of life, that because we were born, we're going to die. It's normal. Then there's something called conceit. Conceit is like arrogance and pride. This is measuring and comparing. This is judging other people. This is like putting yourself above people and looking down on them, or putting yourself below people and looking up to them with such awe and admiration that maybe you're shaken up when you're around them. If you've ever had a boss that you went into their office and you were all shaken up around that person, this is because of the conceit, because you felt that you were below this person. And now you can't perform professionally and in a way that's going to improve your career, because you're all shaken up when you're around this person. But also, if you put yourself above people and you look down on them, this isn't going to be helpful for you either. People are just going to push you aside. Where this is coming from is, in our animal existences, we needed conceit, because in the animal world, there's a pecking order. When we were a pack of wolves, we needed to know who's the alpha male and who's the alpha female, because they're teaching us how to hunt. They're teaching us how to survive. They're teaching us how to be better wolves. When we were a herd of elephants, we needed to know who's the matriarch of our herd, because she's going to show us where the food is, where the watering holes are, where the migration paths are. If we didn't know who was above us in the animal world, we wouldn't have survived. So we needed this pecking order in the animal world. But here in the human world, we don't need that. We can all look at each other as being equal. We are all equal to each other. We have different roles in society, but that doesn't mean one person is above or below others. Other people might have the thought that they are above you or that they are below you, but your mind doesn't have to think that way. So we, of course, have a king of Thailand, and we enjoy having a nice king of Thailand, but we also have someone who sweeps the streets out on the street and keeps the streets nice and clean. And we can look at all these people as equal. They just perform different roles, and they have a different lifestyle, but we don't have to look at them as being above or below each other. We can treat everybody the same. This is one of the reasons why your mind gets to peacefulness, because if you have conceit, you'll go into a social situation and you'll be trying to figure out who's above me and who's below me, because I treat the people who are below me in one way and I treat the people who are above me in a different way. And now your mind has to constantly switch between who you're treating which way. But if you treat everybody the same, your mind can be at ease. You can just be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody, right? You don't have to figure out who's above me and who's below me. You can just treat everybody equally in the same way. Okay, so conceit is something that you're going to need to eliminate. This is part of the ego, and it takes many years to work to eliminate this. And there's certain teachings that we share with you to help you learn how to eliminate that. Then there's restlessness, which is the mind being overactive and shaken up. It's confused, it's distracted, it's unconcentrated. It has worry and anxiety. It's like a restless state of mind. That's going to need to be worked on, and you'll be able to work on that. And then the fetter of all fetters, which is actually keeping all the other fetters in place, is called ignorance. I tend to use the phrase unknowing of true reality, because remember, people are translating the words of the Buddha into English, and an enlightened being, a Buddha, doesn't refer to people as ignorant, right? That would be like a derogatory way to refer to people. So I use this word because other people use it and you'll know what other people are talking about. But a better way to think about this is confusion, or misunderstanding, or misperception, or the unknowing of true reality. That the mind in the unenlightened state, it lacks wisdom. It just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. And because of its lack of wisdom, it continues to have these problems. These fetters continue to be in the mind. The mind continues to stay polluted because of its lack of wisdom. So the Buddha's teachings are to help you acquire wisdom. That's how you transform the mind. That's how you get all these fetters out of the mind, is by the cultivation of wisdom. When you cultivate wisdom, you will eliminate your ignorance. And that's why the teachings aren't based in belief. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. So you would like to get to the point where you know the truth, and you can see the truth very clearly through your own direct experience. And the way that you do that is through learning, examining, and investigating the teachings, through then reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice them, integrating them into your day-to-day life. And then that's what's transforming your own mind. So the teachings that you're going to need to learn about are things like the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the 3 wholesome or unwholesome roots, the natural law of karma, the cycle of rebirth. These are all teachings that you're going to need in others to be able to learn, reflect, and practice. And more, your mind is going to cultivate wisdom about the natural laws around you. And this is what's going to awaken it to be able to purify the mind of these 10 fetters and get them out of the mind. Do you guys have any questions on any of the 10 fetters? Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, so as you're eliminating these 10 fetters, you're going to be moving through the 4 stages of enlightenment. They're called stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. Today, we might refer to them just as the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stage of enlightenment. The mind is actually enlightened when it's in the 4th stage of enlightenment. It's referred to as an arahant, or an enlightened being. But these names actually help you to understand a little bit about the teachings of the Buddha, because he refers to the 1st stage of enlightenment as a stream enterer. Because just like a log enters the stream and it will eventually get to the ocean, if you get to the 1st stage of enlightenment, you will get to enlightenment. It's only a matter of time. Either in this life or a future life, you're going to get to enlightenment. So that's why he calls it a stream enterer, because you've entered the stream. And then he calls it a once returner, because if you die in that stage of enlightenment, you will come back into the world one more time, and then you will get to enlightenment in that next birth. A non-returner, this individual is in the 3rd stage of enlightenment. They will be reborn into the heavenly world. They will get to enlightenment in that next life, and then they will escape out of the cycle of rebirth. And then an arahant is someone who's completely purified their mind. There's also something called a Buddha, which I'll explain to you guys what a Buddha is. But first, let me help you understand each one of these stages a little bit more. When you get into the 1st stage of enlightenment, you've eliminated the first 3 fetters: personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior, and observances. Those will be purified out of the mind. And the amount of discontentedness that you're experiencing there is just a mere fraction of what it once was. When you were off the path to enlightenment, you were experiencing a certain amount of anger and frustration and irritation. But by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, that's significantly decreased because of the training of the mind that you've done up to that point. If you die in the stage of enlightenment, you will come back into the world no more than 7 times. But you're going to come back into the human world, and then you'll be able to make your way further on the path potentially. So some of you guys might have been stream mentors in your past life, and now this is another life for you to now train your mind. Then if someone has already eliminated the first 3 fetters, and they've thinned out number 4 and 5, this individual is a once returner. Thinning out a fetter means that it's still there, but it's been greatly thinned out. So if you're noticing that maybe, like, for example, sensual desire, if you have less and less interested in sexual contact, for example, that sensual desire is starting to decrease because your mind is less and less interested in that perhaps. Or if you're noticing that your anger and your bitterness, your ill will isn't as strong as it once was when you were younger, this is because the ill will is starting to decrease, right? So this is what occurs for someone who's training their mind, is they'll notice their sensual desire and their ill will is gradually decreasing. And because of that, they're going to experience less discontentedness because their mind doesn't have these strong emotions any longer. They're still experiencing discontentedness in these 2 stages of enlightenment, but it's not as much as it was when they were off the path to enlightenment. It's been significantly decreased. If somebody dies in the second stage of enlightenment, they will come back into the human world one more time, and they will get to enlightenment in that next life. So again, some of you guys might have actually been a once returner in your past life, and this is your life to now get to enlightenment. You don't know necessarily, right? Then there's something called a non-returner. This is the 3rd stage of enlightenment. You've eliminated all the 3 lower fetters of personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior and observances, sensual desire, and ill will. They've been completely purified from the mind. And because of this, you're very rarely experiencing discontentedness. Maybe once every 3 months, once every 4 months, once every 6 months, you're getting a little bit annoyed. Other people around you probably don't even know that that's what's occurring. But inwardly, you know that your mind's getting a little bit frustrated or agitated inwardly. And it's only happening maybe once every 3 months, once every 6 months. It's very infrequent, and it's very insignificant when it occurs. It's only about 30 seconds or so, and you're able to cut it off and eliminate it out of the mind really easily. So in this situation, the individual is not yet enlightened because they're still experiencing some minor degree of discontentedness, and because of that, their mind can actually become complacent. That sometimes it's like, it's no big deal, right? Just a little bit of discontentedness once every 3 months. I mean, if you got annoyed just a little bit for 30 seconds, once every 3 months, once every 6 months, you might not pay attention to it. So if you're when you get to the 3rd stage of enlightenment, you need to really continue to be diligent, dedicated to what it is that you're doing to train your mind to ultimately get to enlightenment. Because there's still some things in your mind that's hindering you from being able to experience enlightenment. The 4th stage, where the mind is actually enlightened, this is referred to as an arahant, or we might refer to it today as an enlightened being. This individual has eliminated all the 10 fetters. They've purified the mind of all 10 fetters. This individual isn't experiencing any discontentedness at all. It will be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You'll notice that your mind has no discontentedness whatsoever. And by the way, this non-returner, if they die in that stage of enlightenment, they do not return to the human realm. They go to the heavenly realm, and they get to enlightenment from there. In this stage of an arahant, if you die as an enlightened being, you're not reborn anywhere. The Buddha doesn't describe what comes next for an enlightened being, but he shares that you're not reborn in the cycle of rebirth. Sometimes people will tell you different stories about what will happen after you get to enlightenment and you die, but you can see in the original words of the Buddha that he leaves it as an undeclared teaching. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is so peaceful and so joyful. What happens next after this life, it doesn't matter, because if there is something next, great. It's either as good as what you're currently experiencing or better. And if there isn't anything next, that's fine too. but the Buddha leaves it as an undeclared teaching. So these teachings in this path, it isn't about doing a bunch of great things now, and then later after you die, you get some kind of benefit. That's not about an afterlife. It's about getting to a wonderful life now, in this life. And that's why you'll see that your mind is gradually improving. Your life is gradually improving during this life. So it's not about believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's about training your mind now and experiencing improvements now in this life. And that's what the Buddha's guiding you to be able to do. So whether there's something after enlightenment or not, the Buddha just leaves it as an undeclared teachings. And I have various thoughts of why I think he did it that way, but nonetheless, he doesn't teach you what happens next after enlightenment. But by the time you get there, your mind's so peaceful and joyful, it doesn't matter what's next because you're already enjoying life thoroughly. So do you guys have any questions on the 4 stages of enlightenment? Yes, ma'am. If you could get a mic here. Yeah. You need to press the gray button. There you go.
Yes, I want to ask if every being need to cycle at least 7 times to reach to the final stage?
No. So all of us have been reborn countless times, even before now. You might not remember it, but the Buddha describes this. And for people who have seen their past lives, they know this to be true. One of the things that he says, all the tears that you've cried in your past life equal more water than all the water of all the seas, or the milk that you drank from your mother in all your past lives equals more water than all the water in all the seas, or the blood in your body equals more water than all the water all the seas. Essentially, the way that he's saying this is you've just had countless rebirths in the past just to get to this life. Because if you can imagine, this world has existed for 4.5 billion years. This is what we can think. This is what we understand, that at this point in history, we think that the world has been here for 4.5 billion years. That's an enormous amount of time. So the Buddha, having lived 2,500 years ago, that's like a blink of an eye compared to the true history of the world. So if we think back all the way back to the beginning of living beings, which we don't even know necessarily when that was, but it was multiple millions of years ago, there's been countless rebirths since that time frame. And now you're in this life. And now you could have had human lives before this. You were probably in the animal realm before this. You might have been in the other realms before this. But if you get to that first stage of enlightenment as a stream enterer, it's not that you have to be reborn 7 times. It's that there's a maximum of 7 times. So there could be someone who's never learned these teachings ever in this life or a previous life. They learn these teachings in this life and they make their way first stage of enlightenment, second, third, fourth, and actually get to enlightenment all in that particular life. It's possible for that to occur. But there's also the possibility that somebody makes their way up to the first stage of enlightenment and they end up dying in that stage. And if so, they will come back into the human world no more than 7 times. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, a maximum of 7 times. Mm-hmm.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question I have is the Arahant the only destination that all the beings are going to in the end?
It's not a destination, it's a mental state. So we classify it, we call it an arahant or an enlightened being, because essentially what we're describing is someone who's purified their mind, that they no longer have the 10 fetters. So each individual human being, if they choose, based on their own choices, can choose to make their way to becoming an arahant, where their mind is been purified of these 10 fetters. But whether somebody chooses to do that or not, it's a choice for each individual person to make. But if they would like to, the path is available for them to be able to choose to do that. And more people in the world getting to that stage of enlightenment where they are an arahant, the world will just become more and more and more of a peaceful place, because all the individuals that would be in the world would be loving and kind and compassionate and friendly and polite and respectful. We would see a complete transformation. It would be kind of like the humanity would evolve as a species, right? Just like a lizard or a snake or a spider evolves into a better and better species, the human beings, we can actually evolve into a better species through training our mind. Right now, we're kind of at a low point in society, but more and more people that learn these teachings, we can actually evolve our species to the point where we don't experience anger and frustration any longer. Individuals will still be born into the world. They will experience anger and frustration. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, people were getting to enlightenment as early as age 7. If you can imagine, from age 7, never experiencing anger or frustration or misery or despair or annoyment or resentment or jealousy, what a wonderful life, right? Like my son, he started learning these teachings when he was very young, and now he's 12 years old, and he very rarely gets angry or anything. I actually asked him, because I never see him angry anymore. I say, how often do you get discontent? He was like, about once every 3 months. He said he gets a little bit annoyed once every 3 months. So he's having a completely different life than I had when I was growing up, because that wasn't the case when I was 12 years old. I didn't have these teachings available to me at that time. So as more and more people choose to learn and practice these teachings, humanity will just evolve, and we will see such a better world because of that. And that's one of the reasons that motivates me to share these teachings. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. All right. Looks like we have a question coming in here on YouTube. This is Robert or Rob. Why would someone desire to be reborn into the hell realm? There's some people that worship that being. In Buddhism, we call that being Mara. In other places, people call that being the devil or Satan. Some people worship that being. So there's people that are interested in being in that realm. I'm not one of those people. And it sounds like you're probably not either, Robert, but there are people like that. All right. So now let's talk about what a Buddha is, because we've talked about the 4 stages of enlightenment, but then there's something called a Buddha. A Buddha is an arahant. They are an enlightened being. They've purified their mind of the 10 fetters, but they've done it in a unique way. This is a very rare individual. That the last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. The first criteria of what makes a Buddha is that they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. That's what the first criteria is that makes them a Buddha. Then the second criteria is that they share their independently discovered teachings with countless people during their lifetime, and then countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. They will dedicate the rest of their life from the point of the time when they got to enlightenment for the remaining time of their life. They will be sharing their teachings and helping other people to get to enlightenment. Then the third criteria is that they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the 3 main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. They get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. And these are the 3 main criteria. So you can see that, you're not a Buddha. Right? Sometimes people will tell you that everybody is a Buddha, but that's not what the Buddha said. You're going to need teachers. You're going to need guides to help you along the journey, along the path. And the main reason why is because you don't have this 4th criteria. You don't have these 3 criteria, but you also won't have this 4th one. What this 4th criteria is that an individual who's going to become a Buddha, they have a deep, 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 profound memory, even in the unenlightened state. Everything about the way that a Buddha's mind functions and your mind functions, it's exactly the same. But there's one aspect of a Buddha's mind that is unique to an actual Buddha. Your mind, for example, has a certain capacity. It's like a hard drive. Maybe 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte or something like this. There's a limited amount of space. And when you are experiencing your day-to-day life, you kind of remember the last 5 to 10 years. You kind of remember that pretty well. But if you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories about what went on in your childhood. You don't have direct recall about everything that's happened in your childhood. That's because you had to delete your old files in order to store these new files. Because as you're experiencing life, you're having to delete those old files in order to store these new files. That's why you just have spotty memories about the things that happened in your childhood. An individual who's going to become a Buddha, they don't have that limited capacity. They don't have to delete their old files in order to store new files. They have a profound memory where they can have direct recall about things that they were doing in this life, but also in their previous lives as well, where they accumulate wisdom over multiple lifetimes in their last life, that they bring together all that wisdom to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They don't need help on the path. They can figure it out by themselves because they've been accumulating this wisdom. They haven't had to delete their old files because they have an unlimited capacity in their mind. So this is the criteria that allows them to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. An individual who's a Buddha can quickly determine the condition of someone's mind, and then they're able to offer that person teachings that are going to help them to grow and develop on the path. But they only do that if the person is interested in their help. So a Buddha doesn't, sit at a coffee shop, overhear somebody saying something that's unwise, and then like, oh, by the way, let me teach you this, let me teach you that. That would be unsolicited guidance. That would be coming from the ego. So a Buddha only uses their wisdom and this ability to observe someone's mind if they're a student. This is one of the reasons why a Buddha can help countless people get to enlightenment, because they can observe their students' minds and then give them teachings that are going to help them. But those students are asking for that person's help. Then the last thing that makes a Buddha is that they are a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever they teach, that's also what they're practicing as well. So when they teach something like right speech, they're also practicing that as well. Because a Buddha understands that they teach just as much through their spoken words as they do through their actions, because students are observing their actions and how they function, and then this is helping them to learn the path to enlightenment. So a Buddha is going to teach through their actions as well. So whatever they teach, that's also what they're actually practicing on a day-to-day basis. They're a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Okay, so these are the criteria of what makes a Buddha. We refer to this individual as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. Because by the time they get to enlightenment, in terms of their wisdom of how to get to enlightenment, they know the path purely, inside and out. Where an individual who's learning from a teacher, say you were learning from a teacher who wasn't a Buddha, this individual, you're going to learn certain things from them that didn't necessarily lead to your enlightenment. Maybe 80% or 90% of what you know actually led to your enlightenment, but there's like 10% or 20% of extra baggage. Maybe there's a certain meditation or a certain thing that you're doing that didn't actually contribute to your enlightenment, but you're still doing that particular thing. But by the time someone gets to enlightenment as a Buddha, they did this by themselves. If they're trying a certain meditation and it works to improve the condition of their mind, they know that that's the path to enlightenment, and that's what they will teach. But if they try a certain meditation and they realize it's not improving their mind, they will discard it. They will get rid of it. But what an average student will do is they will hold on to that meditation out of respect for their teacher. So an individual who doesn't have a teacher, a Buddha, they don't do that. Whatever they know by the time they get to enlightenment, that's the path to enlightenment. That's what led to their enlightenment. So that's why we refer to them as fully, perfectly enlightened, because they don't have any extra baggage around. And as I mentioned, this type of individual is very rare in the world. The last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. And as far as the world knows, there hasn't been another Buddha since that time frame. So you can get to enlightenment, but at that point you won't be considered a Buddha, but you'll be plenty satisfied with getting to enlightenment. You don't need to be a Buddha. You'll be plenty satisfied. So do you guys have any questions on the stages of enlightenment or what a Buddha is? You have a question? Yeah.
The last Buddha existed like more than 2,000 years ago, and who was him and where was he from? You know some information about him?
Yeah, that's the life story that I talked about earlier.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, the only one?
Yeah, we refer to him as Gotama Buddha.
Oh,
I think in China, you're from China?
Yeah.
I think that you guys call him Shakyamuni Buddha or something like this. There's different ways to refer to him in the world.
Okay.
I refer to him as the Buddha or Gotama Buddha. That's that individual that originated in what we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in Northeast India. There is things in the original teachings that say that there were Buddhas before him, but this is the only conflict that I've seen in the original teachings, that there's places in the Pali Canon where it says there was Buddhas before him. But then there's a place where the Buddha is speaking, and he says that he is the discoverer, the declarer, the originator of the path to enlightenment, undeclared before him, meaning that there weren't any Buddhas before him. The more that you understand about what the path to enlightenment is and the intellectual understanding that you need in order to get to enlightenment, you understand that humanity, as we were evolving, we didn't have well-developed conversation prior to Gotama Buddha's lifetime to be able to guide people to enlightenment. So it wasn't until his lifetime that people could actually conversate and talk in a way that they would intellectually understand how to get to enlightenment. Because at one time, human beings, we were just moaning and grunting to each other. But this slowly but surely, we developed intellectual conversation. So I don't see how a Buddha would have existed before Gotama Buddha, because our conversational language hadn't gotten to the point where it would be possible for an individual to be a Buddha prior to him. Yeah. Okay, so one more thing to teach you guys. Oh, actually, I'll teach you guys this first. This is how to know that you're not enlightened. This is one of my methods of teaching. I'll teach you what something is, then I'll teach you what something isn't. And that's what's going to help you to also understand what something is. So if your mind experiences discontentedness, meaning conditioned feelings, then you know that your mind is not enlightened. And notice here we say pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. And you see things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are conditioned feelings. If your mind is experiencing a conditioned happiness, meaning I will be happy if this thing occurs, that is conditional happiness. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is beyond that. Your mind is experiencing unconditioned happiness. So if you get happy when it's sunny outside and you get sad when it's raining, those are conditioned feelings. You know your mind is unenlightened. Or if you get happy when your bank account balance is up here and you get sad when it's down here, that's conditional feelings. You know that your mind is not enlightened. So sometimes people think, well, are we eliminating happiness to get to enlightenment? The answer is you're eliminating conditional happiness. You're not eliminating the happiness, you're eliminating conditionality, that if this condition is met and this condition is met and this condition is met and this condition is met, then I will be happy. That means your happiness shrinks, because the more expectations you have, the less and less and less happiness that you can experience. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond all of that. Your mind is just always happy. It's always joyful. So if you're experiencing any of these kind of feelings, then you know your mind is unenlightened. If you have a craving or desire for other people to know that you're enlightened, then you know that your mind is not enlightened. An enlightened being doesn't go around bragging or boasting that they're enlightened, because that would be the ego, right? So one of the best ways to know someone's not enlightened is they will tell you that they're enlightened. So if someone rolls up to you and like, hey, by the way, guess what? I'm enlightened. Don't tell anybody, right? This person is not enlightened. So if you're having a desire to do that, it's like, what do you want? Do you want some admiration? Do you want us to like bow down to you? Like, what are you wanting from us, right? So if your mind is wanting other people to know you're enlightened, then you know that you're not enlightened yet. And then lastly here, some other things to know that you're not enlightened is if there's complacency, if there's dullness, if there's a lethargic condition, if you're unmotivated, if you have a lack of willingness to do something, if you're just kind of dull and lazy, this isn't what an enlightened being is experiencing. But an enlightened being also isn't just go, 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 go. Their mind is in the middle. They're gradually working towards certain goals and objectives in their life. So they're not dull and lethargic and lacking motivation, lacking enthusiasm, but they're also not go, 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 go. They're in the middle, right? So if you're noticing any of these things, you know your mind is not enlightened, okay? So now what I'll do is I'll teach you guys what's called the 7 factors of enlightenment. And I have this in here because this is a tool for you to fine-tune your mind. Sometimes people think that the 7 factors of enlightenment are to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened because of the name of it, 7 factors. It sounds like it's criteria to determine whether or not you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened, but that's not the case. These are actually a tool to fine-tune the mind. So the Buddha taught these 7 factors of enlightenment because as you're training your mind's going to kind of swing from side to side. Just like you heard the story of the Buddha, that he was in the palace having sensual pleasure, then he swung all the way to the other side, eating 1 grain of rice per day. You're going to need to bring your mind to the middle. And what you're going to notice is that in some situations, your mind is sluggish and dull and lethargic, and you're going to need to lift it up and bring it to the middle. In other situations, your mind is going to be overactive and excited. You're going to need to calm it down and bring it to the middle. And the more that you stay in the middle with your mind, the more it'll just stay there. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is just always in the middle. It's no effort to keep your mind in the middle because it's been refined to stay in the middle. But on your way to enlightenment, you're going to need tools to refine your mind and bring it to the middle. So that's where the 7 factors of enlightenment come in. That the Buddha teaches you to always practice mindfulness or awareness of mind, where you're aware of what's going on within your own mind. That's like a guard, to guard your mind, that you practice this awareness of what's going on in the mind. And you're going to learn about that tomorrow. When we talk about the Eightfold Path, I'm going to teach you more about what mindfulness is. It's more than just awareness of mind, but that's where you would like to start, is understand that mindfulness is awareness of mind. Then when you have awareness of mind and you notice that your mind is sluggish or dull or lethargic, that's where you practice the enlightenment factor of investigation, energy, and joy. This is what's going to uplift your mind and bring it to the middle. Investigation is where you investigate the teachings, you examine them. That is exactly the opposite of what your mind's going to want to do. When it's dull and lethargic and sluggish and complacent, you're not going to be interested in reading that book. You're not going to be interested in coming to the temple, right? Because the mind's dull and lethargic and complacent. So you're going to need to lift it up out of that with investigation of the teachings. Then you're going to see this energy spring up in the mind, where there's this willingness to do something, this vigor, this vitality, this enthusiasm and ambition is going to spring up in the mind. It's going to lift the mind up. And then you're going to see the joy, the unconditioned gladness coming into the mind. So that's how you lift the mind out of the sluggish state, is through investigation of the teachings, through practicing the enlightenment factor of energy and the enlightenment factor of joy. So these 3 enlightenment factors, they actually bring the mind up out of the sluggish condition. But then when you notice your mind is overactive and, having anxiety and things like this, you need to calm it down. The way you calm the mind down is you bring in the enlightenment factor of tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. This is what's going to calm the mind down and bring it to the middle. So your tranquility is this relaxed, steady, stable peacefulness and stillness of mind. So you're going to need to use your mindfulness to see the mind's overactive and has all this bouncing around. And you're going to need to bring in the calmness and the stillness. Then you're going to need to bring in the concentration, which is the mental alertness, the attentiveness, the ability to give your attention to a single activity. Then you'll need to bring in the equanimity, which is the calmness and the composure, the evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation, right? So I'll give you an example. Say you get a phone call that your mom's been in a terrible car accident and she's being rushed to the hospital and she's in the back of an ambulance. If you notice your mindfulness, whoa, mom's injured. You notice with your mindfulness, your mind's overactive. Bring in the tranquility, the concentration, the equanimity, especially in a difficult situation. No need to grab your car keys and rush across town to get to the hospital, because you'll more likely get in an accident yourself. That's unwise. Your mom is in the best situation she could be in. She's in the back of an ambulance with emergency medical technicians. She's about to arrive to a hospital with all the sophisticated equipment to be able to take care of her. You rushing across town isn't going to change anything about what happens with your mom. But if you arrive to the hospital calm and composed, that's going to help your mom, because now you can ask the doctors and nurses questions. You can understand what's going on with your mom. And now you can start making wise decisions to help her. But if you show up to the hospital with your mind all frazzled and all over the place, you're not going to be able to help your mom. So the Buddha is teaching you to calm your mind down with tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And that's what's going to help you in that situation. And there's going to be other situations. This is just an example that I think you can understand that I use this example. Okay? So the mindfulness is something you practice all the time. The investigation, energy, and joy, you use that when your mind is sluggish and dull and lethargic. And then the tranquility, concentration, equanimity is when your mind's overactive. Okay? So these are called the 7 factors of enlightenment. And by the way, before I send you guys off to lunch, I would like you to know that these visual aids that I'm using, they're available on our website. If you go to buddhadailywisdom.com and you click on free books and you go down towards the bottom, you're going to see these slides. And I actually have a workbook there that you can actually print out at one of the local places if you like, or you can just use that PDF on your hard drive of your device and you'll be able to see that you have access to all these slides. So if you'd like to get access to these, you're more than welcome to get it from our website. And you'll see all the other resources that I have out there as well. Okay. So do you guys have any questions on the 7 factors of enlightenment? Let me see if we have anything online here. Okay, I'm not seeing anything online either. Okay, so right now it's 11:45 essentially. So we're going to take an hour and a half lunch. If you guys would like to come back in an hour and a half, that would be 1:15. And it means we'll probably finish up today about 15 minutes early. Is that good for you guys? Come back at 1:15 instead of 1:30? Okay, so if you guys would like to come back at 1:15, I'm going to teach you Buddhist chanting. That's what I'm going to teach you this afternoon. I'm going to explain to you the history of Buddhist chanting, where it comes from. I'm going to explain to you the benefits of it and how it helps you in your day-to-day life. And then I'm going to teach you how to do it. And we're actually going to put it together in a meditation session where you guys can learn it and put it together and actually incorporate it into your meditation session. So enjoy your lunch, whatever you choose to do, and I'll see you guys at 1:15. Okay? Take care. Right.